What a strange ending. I'm not quite sure what we just saw. A mostly entertaining night, a diverse card, plenty of big moments, but something doesn't quite feel right. And it's not just Roman Reigns losing. Let's take a look at what happened at WrestleMania 34. We kicked things off with the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which was a fun match. There were no NXT stars, there were no legends, nothing like that. In fact, our predictions were almost entirely wrong. I had Killian Dane, he wasn't in the match. Jack had Elias, he wasn't in the match. Sam had Big Cass, he wasn't in the match. The only person with a chance of winning was Ross, who picked Baron Corbin. That didn't happen either. John Cena was in the crowd as a paying customer, getting a little bit tanked up, which was fun. There were some cool moments in the match. I liked Mojo eliminating Zack, his former partner. I liked Goldust dabbing. That was fun too. It looked like they were setting up to the first ever two-time armbar winner because it was down to Baron Corbin, my boy Mojo Rawley, and somebody who hasn't won the armbar before, Matt Hardy. But then, spooky noises, spooky graphics on the screen. It's Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt making his return. He hasn't been seen in a few weeks. So Bray Wyatt helped Matt Hardy to eliminate both Baron Corbin and Mojo Rawley, setting up a partnership between the two men, Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. And I think this is the most excited I've been to see Bray Wyatt in years. I can't wait to see where they take this. My assumption is that Jeff will probably be drafted to SmackDown to start a singles run because there's certainly money there, with Bray and Matt teaming in the coming months, perhaps even going after the Raw Tag Team titles. Good luck to them, they've got some stiff competition now. Next up, Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali. This is something that I was a little bit worried about as far as the crowd reception went, but the crowd was super into the match from the offset. They don't get a lot of TV time, unfortunately, the 205 guys, so it was really good to see that the crowd were receptive and were into the match. As you would expect, some seriously awesome spots in this match. For example, Mustafa Ali hitting the Spanish Fly from the top rope was brilliant. At one point, Cedric grabbed Mustafa from outside the ring. It looked like he was about to be counted out, but Cedric didn't want a count-out victory, so he pulled him back in to continue the match. That was great. Mustafa hits the 054, a tremendous move, but Cedric gets his foot on the rope. He goes up for a second attempt, misses. Cedric Alexander straight into the lumbar check and wins the new Cruiserweight champion, and a guy who I think you can build that entire division around. The final match of the pre-show was, of course, the first historic women's historic battle royal. Historic. Carmella was immediately eliminated from the match because nobody likes her, obviously. The big NXT chants as some of the female members of the NXT roster squared off against some of the main roster. That was a really cool moment. Bianca Belair, who is, I think, terrific. She's going to be big in a few years, mark my words. Hit that fantastic 450. That was just brilliant. Kairi Sane was eliminated while the commercials were on, which was disappointing. I love Kairi Sane. I would have liked to have seen the elbow drop at least. That should have been on TV, really. It's so tremendous, but I guess, you know, there's time. It came down to Sasha and Bayley, two wrestlers who I think a lot of us were really upset that they didn't have a more prominent spot on the WrestleMania card. However, they did have a cool moment here and some storyline progression, which is really important. So they went for a handshake, they shook hands, and then Bayley eliminated Sasha. She thinks she's won the match, however, Naomi was still in the match, slides back in the ring, tosses Bayley out. Naomi is the winner of the first ever Women's Battle Royal. As I say, I think this was a clever way of continuing the Sasha Bayley storyline while also giving another woman on the roster a big moment. So congratulations to Naomi. It was a good match. Time for the main show. It's The Miz versus Finn Bálor versus Seth Rollins for the Intercontinental title. A fast, work rate based match to kick things off, and the crowd are hot. Seth Rollins entered wearing some of Roman Reigns' old blue contact lenses, while The Miz entered dressed as Timmy Mallet. Most of you won't know who that is. I'm showing my age here. I think there was a chance here that The Miz could have been overshadowed by Finn and Seth, who are arguably more athletic than The Miz, but Miz played his character perfectly. Seth and Finn may have had the more impressive spots, but Miz was relentlessly ruthless, cutting off the offense of his opponents as often as possible. A finisher-heavy match with each man doing their best best to end things in quick succession, but Seth Rollins picked up the win, becoming Intercontinental Champion and Grand Slam Champion in the process, something that he obviously deserves. Congratulations, Seth. A great opener, one of the matches of the night as far as I'm concerned, and hey, Miz, maybe don't send the Miztourage to the back in future. Next up, Charlotte Flair versus Asuka for the SmackDown Women's title. The streak is over. I think this match did start off slow, but there were some really great spots in this one. Charlotte went for a moonsault. She was caught into a triangle choke, which was flawlessly executed. There was a really great Spanish fly from the top rope again. There was a big vertical suplex to the outside by Asuka, and then slightly later, in surprisingly straightforward fashion, Charlotte Flair locked in the figure eight, and Asuka tapped out. And I couldn't be happier. I may not have predicted it, but for my money, Charlotte Flair is legitimately the best women's wrestler in the world today. She's that good. She is unbelievably talented. And if there's anybody who should have ended the streak, it was Charlotte. After the match was over, a referee ran to ringside to let John Cena know that the Undertaker had arrived, which was good because John Cena could stop making this face at any wrestling move ever. It was like John Cena had never seen wrestling before. He just kept going at fairly, not mundane moves, but moves that we see on weekly TV. John Cena was very, very impressed by the action in the ring. This Undertaker-John Cena build has been fascinating. It has been unusual at best, but I think we'll look back in 10 years' time and see it as one of the more enjoyable WrestleMania builds. It's been odd. Really, really odd. John Cena has gone mental and has become more mental as each week has gone on, but it culminated tonight into something brilliant. I get now why they weren't advertising the match as definitely happening. We'll get to that very shortly. But yeah, I think it's been really good, and I love John Cena being in the crowd, and I loved him absolutely pegging it up the ramp to go and find mean Mark Calloway. Next up, Randy Orton versus Jinder Mahal versus Bobby Roode versus Rusev for the US title. Jinder Mahal won. Jinder Mahal beat Randy Orton. Jinder Mahal beat Bobby Roode. Jinder Mahal, on Rusev Day, beat Rusev. Let's look at the positives here. Number one, the match itself was good. Not great, but good. Number two, Jinder Mahal didn't win the WWE or Universal title. Number three, I'm struggling here. Actually, no, there is a number three, and that number three is that we now have a truly despised heel champion. Jinder wasn't ready for the WWE title. I think he's ready for a truly despicable mid-card title run. If the WWE are clever here, they can capitalize on this hatred and actually book something quite magnificent, hopefully culminating with Rusev defeating Jinder Mahal. Yeah, it's still a little bit annoying. Nobody thought that was going to happen, but it's been an unpredictable night. Then came Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey versus Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, and this played out perfectly. Cheap shot after cheap shot from Steph meant that when Rousey finally got her hands on McMahon, it felt so good. This was basic wrestling storytelling. It was bad guys versus good guys, and it was better than it had any right to be. I do think that Steph got a little bit too much offense in. She was blocking legitimate MMA holds. She was executing legitimate wrestling maneuvers. That shouldn't happen. Stephanie isn't a wrestler, unlike her brother, Shane McMahon, who is a terrific professional wrestler. Yeah, at one point, Rousey, I think, had an armbar on Steph, and Steph was able to resist it and end up reversing it. Rousey's a UFC alumni. What is that about? That is mad. That shouldn't have happened. But overall, as I say, it was good versus evil. It was basic, classic wrestling storytelling, and Rousey seriously impressed. Rousey's participation was more than any of us were expecting, and she was born to do this. Seriously, she is a tremendous athlete and a tremendous entertainer, and she proved tonight that she is a seriously valuable asset to the WWE. I can't wait to see what she does next. Next up, the Usos versus the New Day versus the Bludgeon Brothers for the Smackdown Tag Titles. There's not that much to say about this match. Following that mixed tag, can't have been easy, and for that reason I think this match was kept relatively short. The Bludgeon Brothers, of course, picked up the win. I think it would have been really deflating for the Bludgeon Brothers not to have won. They've been squashing people and squashing people and squashing people. They would have really had their momentum hurt, even if they weren't pinned, by not winning this match. Personally, there was a big part of me that wanted to see the Usos, who have never had a big WrestleMania moment, for that to finally happen. But I love Harper, I like Rowan, it was a fine match, and new SmackDown Tag Champions. Next was John Cena versus The Undertaker. It actually happened. A match that we, especially after last year, never thought we would see at WrestleMania actually happen. John Cena versus The Undertaker. And I believe it lasted 2 minutes and 46 seconds. It happened. Following some brilliant Elias banter, The Undertaker appeared as the dead man, not with Kid Rock behind him, thank the Lord, and squashed. It was a squash match. He squashed John Cena. It's funny, if you had asked me a year ago, would I like to see The Undertaker wrestle again? It would have been a definitive no. Absolutely not. The retirement, or what we thought was the retirement, felt perfect. And then when the gong hit, goosebumps. So this is why the match wasn't confirmed beforehand. You couldn't advertise a match like John Cena versus The Undertaker, get people signing up to the WWE Network, even though it's free for 30 days, you should go and get a trial. You couldn't advertise that and then deliver a match which was less than 3 minutes. But it was great that it did happen. There is no greater character in professional wrestling than The Undertaker. Ever. Ever. He is the best. And seeing him tear John Cena a new one after weeks of John Cena going completely bozo on Raw was brilliant. That's a WrestleMania moment, and maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I think I want to see one more match, and the obvious thing to me is The Undertaker at Survivor Series, the pay-per-view where he debuted. Have it come full circle. He looks in great shape. He could go again. I can't believe I'm saying this. After last year, didn't want to see it. Then came Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan. Speaking of people who we didn't think we would see compete in a WWE ring again, Daniel Bryan just competed at WrestleMania in 2018. Yes, yes, yes. Anyway, immediately right at the beginning of the match, Daniel Bryan was attacked by Kevin and Sami, laid out on the outside, leaving Shane to compete against two actual wrestlers in what looked like it was going to be a handicap match. At this point, the match should have lasted about 20 seconds, but no, Shane McMahon is a one-time European champion, a one-time hardcore champion, and one of the best wrestlers on the face of the earth. He, of course, held his own against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. When Daniel Bryan got back into the match, he proved that he hasn't missed a beat. He is still the same intense GOAT that we all know and love, and I think a lot of us didn't want to see Daniel Bryan come back into a tag match. It wasn't the match, it wasn't the return match that we had all dreamed of, but it was a solid match, it was a fun match. He got his third WrestleMania moment. He won the big one, he won the IC title in that great ladder match, and seeing Daniel Bryan in the corner of the ring, yesing, in his ring gear, special. Daniel Bryan's back. There's so many dream matches. I could list all of the dream matches I want to see Daniel Bryan in. I won't do that. Daniel Bryan's back. The match wasn't what we were expecting. It was still good. It was still good. But Daniel Bryan's back. Also, I cannot wait to see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in the Job Center, by which I mean Monday Night Raw in maybe 2 weeks. For me, this is where WrestleMania 34 started to lose its momentum. Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax for the Raw Women's title. This one to me felt slower than it should have been. I like the start. think the start was really strong. Nia came down to the ring and absolutely destroyed Mickie James. That was really good. It left it one-on-one, meant that Alexa had to employ all of these nasty heel tactics to try to win, raking the eyes, pulling the hair, all of that stuff. I don't know why I'm doing that. You know what hair pulling looks like. But overall, it just wasn't as strong a match as I thought it would be. This was the match where I thought we would finally see the Carmella cash in. Despite the fact that she's on SmackDown, obviously this is the Raw title, she can still do that. In part, that was because she was eliminated from the Battle Royal earlier in the night in such quick fashion. In part because she's running out of pissing time. What are you playing at, Carmella? Yeah, that didn't happen. This was the right conclusion to the storyline. It was a nasty story of bullying and body shaming. Alexa Bliss needed her comeuppance. It's just not the match that I thought we would get. Cool for Nia Jax to get her WrestleMania moment. Really cool. Good to see. But I think the match was underwhelming. Next up was AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the WWE title. This isn't what any of us were expecting. I don't know if it was due to time constraints or perhaps the match's placement on the card itself. The crowd was certainly burned out by this point. They had experienced a lot of wrestling, a lot of really good wrestling too, but this didn't live up to expectations, and that's a shame. In my mind, this was going to be match of the night easily. No question. But it wasn't. The ending sequence was good, not great. There were a few decent near falls. But overall, this match isn't what it should have been. What was interesting is what happened after AJ Styles retained the WWE title. Shinsuke Nakamura turned heel. Now this is exciting. This could truly be the change of direction that Shinsuke Nakamura needs. And more importantly, even though we were disappointed by this match, it could make a rematch way more interesting. This match was all about the match being a dream match. There wasn't that much storyline there. Obviously we had the AJ is really emotional, can he control those emotions? But there wasn't that much storyline. I think since being called up from NXT, Shinsuke Nakamura, his character hasn't translated that well to a wider audience. And that's a shame, because he's still intense, he's still brilliant, but he's not the Shinsuke Nakamura that we saw on NXT. And since coming to the main roster, I don't think he's had a real standout match. And this should have been it. AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura. We know it can be fantastic. We've seen it in New Japan. Perhaps it's limitations in what they're allowed to do. Perhaps it was time constraints. I don't know. But I think in a few months' time, either after Money in the Bank or SummerSlam, whenever the rematch happens, we will be talking about it. So trying to not get too down on this one. Wasn't what we thought it would be, but it will happen and it will be brilliant. Next up, The Bar versus Braun Strowman and a mystery partner. Who could it be? Was it James Ellsworth? No. Was it Samoa Joe? No. Was it CM Punk? No. It was a 10-year-old child called Nicholas. That's right, Braun trashes The Bar's parade float because he's Braun Strowman before proceeding to the ring and explaining that, hey, his partner's not in the back, they're in the crowd, they're somewhere out there. So who does he pick? Does he pick the Ghoul guy in the front row with the long hair? No. Does he pick shocked Undertaker guy? No. He picks a 10-year-old child. I don't know if he's 10. 8-year-old child. 4-year-old child. I don't know. He picked a child called Nicholas. And Nicholas is now one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions. Wrestling! You know what? I'm not even mad. Wrestling is silly, and as long as Nicholas isn't making both members of the Revival tap out to his finisher, the Nicola crossface, then it's all in good fun. And Nicholas, you are living Adam Pachiti's 8-year-old dream right now. Congratulations. And finally, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the Universal title. Roman Reigns kicked out of 5 F5s. It took 6 F5s to put Roman Reigns away, but Roman Reigns was put away. The match was more brutal than perhaps expected, with shades of SummerSlam 2016 as Brock legit hard way cut open Roman Reigns. He was bleeding like a stuffed pig. It was brutal. It was almost uncomfortable viewing. It was way more brutal than expected, but the most shocking thing here is that Roman Reigns actually lost. This match was over 3 years in the making. We all thought we knew what the finish would be, and it's just not what we expected, which I think is the overriding theme of the last 90 minutes of WrestleMania 34. It's not a bad thing that Roman Reigns lost. It was just really unpredictable, and it certainly makes now tonight's episode of Raw, the Raw After Mania, unmissable TV. Must watch. Maybe it means that Brock Lesnar isn't going to UFC as soon as we expected. I don't know. Compelling. What was weird about it in some ways is there just wasn't like a defining moment at the end. There was no graphic that you could show that was like, I don't know, I just had it in my mind that the last thing we'd see would be Roman Reigns holding the Universal title belt up, and that didn't happen. So I'm really in shock about this. So overall, an enjoyable night. There were disappointments. There's no point pretending that there weren't. But think back to the first 3.5 hours of the show, and it was terrific, I think. It was a really enjoyable night of wrestling. I think Charlotte Asuka was match of the night for me. I think Charlotte is a bigger star than ever now. It was just really, really solid, brilliant wrestling. I also think the mixed tag was great. Great storytelling, great basic bad guy, good guy storytelling. I think that was great. I think the Intercontinental title 3-way, also brilliant. Lots of memorable moments. Undertaker Cena, fantastic. Just a weird one, a weird WrestleMania. Anyway, congratulations Naomi, congratulations Bludgeon Brothers, congratulations Nia, but most importantly, congratulations Nicholas. One half of the Raw Tag Team Champions. Fair play. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.